Status. Whether you know it or not, your life is affected by status. Ironically, it's a little bit low status to talk about status. However, I don't really care. It interests me, and we're going to talk about it. What does it really mean when somebody has status? Sometimes we call it clout, or charisma, however you want to name it. There's a lot of confusion around it, and it's not always clear what exactly it is. Maybe I could put it this way. Have you ever been around somebody and you got this feeling like they thought they were better than you? Maybe they act like it. Maybe their nose was stuck up in the air. Or they had this expression on their face where they had some sort of contempt towards you. Maybe looking down on you. Perhaps you made a gesture of friendliness and they stared at you blankly and ignored you. This can happen to all of us. And it's not always tied to status. It can genuinely just be that that person is in their own head or having a bad day, or they don't want to talk to you for whatever reason. But it also can be because they do think they're better than you. So what's it mean to think that you're better than somebody? Well, typically it can come in the form of competition. Maybe someone thinks, I'm ranked way higher than this person will ever be. I'm just better than them. That can be in business, grades in school, video game leaderboards. Competition can come out in so many different forms, in so many different ways. Gathering the most treasure in Sea of Thieves. I could go on with a host of other examples. But hopefully you get the point. Distinguishing yourself from somebody else in an effort to feel like you have more value than that individual. More utility, more usefulness, more beauty, more intelligence, whatever it is. Being around people like this usually makes us feel bad about ourselves. We can feel inadequate. We can feel like we're being judged, that we're not enough, that there's been a label placed upon our head that everyone can now see. And suddenly, we're not our lively self. We're not fully in we're not fully comfortable in our own skin. And sometimes we can do this to others. We can see somebody who maybe has a job that isn't the highest paying, isn't the most glamorous. Maybe there's someone who we don't view as attractive, or we see as weak. We can cast that judgment ourselves, just as that judgment can be cast upon us. But how much interplay does it really have in our life? How much interplay does status have in our life? Well, it plays a bigger part than most people think. Every time you interact with someone, there is some level of awareness about where this person's status is in life. From the money they make, to the relationships they have, to the things they're good at, to the things they're known for. This is all information. And we all use it as a judgment of that person. There's a really great book written by Will Storr called The Status Game. And if this topic interests you, I highly recommend reading it. It is a very good book. Will Storr pretty effectively captures the large layout of this conversation, this topic, at the very least from most angles on the surface level, and delves deep into a few specific key areas. This book is not the end-all be-all about status, and there's a lot of things Will doesn't touch on, but for the most part, this is probably one of the most effective overviews I have ever found on the subject, and is very valuable. The one key insight I would say about this book is that I disagree with Will Storr's philosophy. He argues that status is the most fundamental, most important thing that governs our lives. And while it's true to an extent, our lives are a lot more complicated and have a lot more depth than status alone. However, I do agree that there is an element, this element, status, that has interplay in our lives to a very great degree, whether we know it or not. This can be a difficult thing to think about, especially when it comes to relationships. Relationships with friends, for example. Some of us can find ourselves in friendships where the sole reason why we are friends with this person, or they are friends with us, is because what we bring to the table, in their eyes, is status. It's not about the laughs. It's not about the good times. It's when I'm around this person, do I get more status or less? Do I move up in the hierarchy or do I move down? Am I hanging out with the cool kids or the bottom feeders? This somewhat black and white thinking that we can come to in life can cause a problem, because we begin to devalue the relationship with that person. We begin to de-individualize them, and instead look solely at their character based on their representation of wherever they are in life. Their clothes, their car, their house, their grades, their scores in video games, the level of ability they have to play an instrument, whatever it is. That becomes our picture of this person. That becomes the reason why we hang out with them. They're high status. I'm high status. I should be hanging out with this person. This type of thinking can end up bringing us to a point in a relationship where when one of these individuals either gains or loses a lot of status, that relationship ends. This can probably happen regardless of if you are good friends or not. Some relationships do have an expiry date. And it could be the fact that it does simply boil down to status. It's not an easy question to answer, and there's usually multiple facets at play why a relationship begins or ends. If you've ever found yourself wondering, why did I suddenly lose connection with my friends? Or why did I suddenly stop hanging out with them, or they stopped hanging out with me? This factor may have been a factor at play. It might not have. There could have still been something else that happened. But as a social species, we are constantly monitoring these things. And it doesn't necessarily mean you need to obsess over it. At the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. As far as we understand, it is a core fundamental process that the human body regulates and pays attention to. But obsessing over status can cause this effect where suddenly we're overthinking about everything. How's my posture? How is my ranking in society? Am I speaking in a way that is proper? Do I look cool enough? Am I wearing the right shoes? Do I have a cool enough car? All of these little things can get to eat away at us. And suddenly we can find ourselves so obsessed about this element of life that does have an interplay in our lives, but it's not necessarily the most important thing that we should be putting our focus on. One of the most useful tools you can learn in life is people. Learning how to understand people. And this can come from studying some topics of psychology, but not all of psychology is going to provide you with practical information that you can take into your day-to-day. There are a lot of topics that do, but there are still a number of topics that don't. One of the greatest things you can do is just stay curious. Look for new information. Don't trust everything you hear, including this video. You should always fact check. Some of the things I'm saying could be flat out wrong. We'll admit that. I don't know everything. I don't proclaim to. I just know what I know, and I go off the information I do know. And I hope that sharing some of this might help you get closer to whatever it is you're looking for. Most of us seem to be looking for answers. If you're on that path, I'm walking it too. Thank you for listening. I'll catch you in the next one.